Hi, my name is Finn Berger. I'm 15 years old and I'm a freshman at Darien High School. And today I'm pleased to be joined by the Democratic candidate for Board of Education, Kadi Lublin.
Thanks so much for having me, Finn. I'm excited to be here.
Let's start with my first question. What are the biggest issues facing the Board of Education in town and our voters?
I would say that the biggest issues facing Darien right now are one, the hiring of a new superintendent, and two, the budget. The budget is a big issue every year, and I don't expect this year to be any different.
And follows up into my second question. The budget is always a big talking point on the board. How do you feel the funds should be allocated in an appropriate way?
I appreciate that you asked that question about the funds allocation. And I would say that the thing that we need to remember as a board in everything that we do, but especially when it comes to budget, which are the resources, is that we need to be looking at student impact. So we really need to be looking at student programming. We need to be looking at adequate staffing. And the Board of Ed has a fiduciary responsibility to budget in a fiscally responsible way. But that doesn't necessarily mean reaching the lowest budget possible. That actually means investing in education, looking to spend our money efficiently and effectively so that we're providing that all students, regardless of interest and ability, have the opportunity not to just thrive, but to really reap their potential.
What do you think you've accomplished during your first term that voters should know about?
One of the things that I'm really proud about from my first term is that we passed a new early literacy curriculum. For a long time, Darien and a lot of schools across the nation were using the units of study model, which was a reading and writing workshop that came from Lucy Calkins. And unfortunately, it had some deficiencies regarding grammar and phonological awareness. So recently, we spent 2 years studying and piloting a new program, and we are launching this year implementing a new program that is from HMH into reading. So I'm really, really excited to see us looking critically at the materials that we are putting in front of our youngest students. We have great teachers, and it's not to say that they were doing anything wrong or that they were at fault, but it's incumbent on us as a community to provide them with the best resources. And I think that this new program is going to do a lot to improve the instruction that we're providing to our earliest learners.
What do you plan to accomplish if you're elected when you are elected to a second term?
I would really like to see the board um, function more cohesively. I'd like to see us operate in a more collaborative and transparent manner. Something that I've been working on for the past year is the first ever development of a board member handbook. We've never had a document with guiding principles, with a more robust onboarding practice, let alone a mentorship. So I'd really like to see the board move into not just better governments, but also better relationships with administration and with itself.
How is the board working to improve student and faculty performance and well-being?
That's a great question. And I think that this is something that, in conjunction with a new superintendent, we really need to take a look at in the next year. I would say that we need to, in terms of faculty, we need to reevaluate our professional development. We've had a bit of a controversy in the spring regarding a calendar scheduling for our professional learning communities and early dismissal days. We really need to make sure that any resources that we're providing to teachers, but especially time that we're removing teachers and or students from classrooms is really being spent in the most effective and impactful way. So I'd like to see us do a full and comprehensive review of professional development. And then on the student side of that, it's really important for us to broaden our perspective on metrics and performance. Standardized test scores are one snapshot in time of a student's performance on that particular day, and they really don't represent the full scope of student learning and experience. So I'd like to see us get a little more creative in terms of how we measure the qualitative components and not just rely on a single quantitative measure.
You mentioned in there the hiring of a new superintendent. What do you want that process to look like? And what are the qualities that you're looking for in a new superintendent to lead the town?
So the superintendent is one of the most important responsibilities that the Board of Ed has. And we have an opportunity with bringing in a new superintendent to really evaluate and look at what is working in Darien and what we might want to change. I'm really excited that we hired such a strong interim superintendent in Dr. Eric Byrne. And, the board has gone through a pretty robust process in talking about what a search would look like. We hired an executive search firm that's been helping guide us in best practices and making sure that we are coalescing, not just as a board, but with the entire community about what we're looking in a superintendent. We've held a lot of focus groups and meetings, surveys where all community members from students to empty nesters in town have had an ability to weigh in on that process. And I'm really excited to say that on the agenda for the upcoming meeting on Tuesday, the 28th, we have a potential appointment of a new superintendent.
You've mentioned reviewing school start times. Obviously, I think 6 a.m. is really early to get up for some kids, especially at such a young age where you want to prioritize sleep. What would that look like for you?
That's a good question. And I think that to have that conversation, we need to look at all of the options available to us. We need to really be thorough in exploring different combinations. The first thing that seems a bit obvious to me is that naturally younger kids wake up earlier and go to bed earlier, just as older kids wake up later and stay up later. So right now I see us as having a mismatch in our school start times. Our high school is the earliest starting with our oldest kids, and we have elementary school with our youngest kids starting the latest. Oxbridge, where you went to school, where my kids went to school, starts at 9 a.m. When my kids were in elementary school, they were up by 6 a.m. and had hours to fill in the day, hours where they were energetic and ready to go. That is not the same thing for my same kids who are now in high school. It is a real struggle for them to get up that early and to get to school on time, not to mention to be awake and functioning for very high level classes at the rigor of DHS, before 8 a.m.
Mhm. So our next segment's going to be a lightning round. We want the voters in Darien to be able to get to know you a little bit better. So I'm going to ask you a few questions yourself that you can answer. When you were in school, what was your favorite subject?
Art,
What's your favorite food to eat?
Mexican,
Where did you go to high school?
Frankfurt High School, home of the hot dogs. That's actually true. I'm not making that up.
Who was one teacher that really impacted your life in high school?
Miss Boozer, Buzer. She was my AP English teacher senior year. And one of the things that I remember most about her was that as we were graduating, she gave all of us this short but very impassioned speech that she would always be there for us, and that we were going on to a new phase of our life, and that there would be challenges, but that if we ever needed something from her, she would always show up for us. And I thought that was really powerful and showed the dedication of teachers beyond just the classroom to really seeing students as whole individuals.
What's the best advice someone's ever given?
That was actually asked on the Patch candidate profile too. And I said, stand up for what you believe and be true to yourself.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me today.
Finn, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.